Welcome to the second video in the three-part series exploring rSeries FIPS. In the first video, we introduced the rSeries FIPS appliances and the F5 OSA platform layer software that runs on the rSeries appliances. We then created FIPS partitions on the rSeries FIPS appliance. In today's video, we'll deploy Big IP tenants on an rSeries FIPS appliance and assign FIPS partitions that we created in the first video to the tenants. We will then attempt to do a FIPS card config backup and restore from a FIPS card on an iSeries FIPS appliance to a FIPS partition assigned to a tenant running on rSeries. As you can see on your screen, I've logged into the UI using the management IP address of the rSeries appliance. Also for today's demo, I've gone ahead and uploaded the Big IP tenant image. I've chosen to upload the all QCow image. Also for today's demo, I've gone ahead and created two VLANs, a client and server VLANs, and both of these VLANs are mapped to interfaces. So for today's demo, I'll be creating and deploying a tenant via the CLI. So let's jump to the CLI. So the command to deploy a tenant on an rSeries appliance is the tenant name. We have appliance mode disabled. We're enabling crypto acceleration. We're also assigning a FIPS partition to the tenant. So in this case, we're assigning partition 2 to tenant 1. As you can see, I have the IP address, the number of slots that this tenant should span. I also have this tenant will run the Big IP 17.1 all image that we uploaded. The tenant will be in the deployed state and also has the two VLANs that we created mapped to it. So hit enter. Ensure to also issue the commit command to begin the tenant deployment process. It's now verified that the tenant that we deployed is running. The command to show the status of the tenant is the show tenants tenant and then the tenant name. So in this case, tenant 1. Let's hit enter. As you can see here, this tenant is running and has the FIPS partition assigned to. To recap, we've introduced the rSeries FIPS appliance and the F5 OSA software that runs on it. We then logged into an rSeries appliance to resize the default partition and create a new FIPS partition on the rSeries appliance. And then we were able to deploy a tenant on the rSeries appliance with a FIPS partition assigned to it. Before we move on to the key migration and Big IP configuration migration, let's quickly look at the iSeries appliance that we are going to migrate FIPS keys and Big IP configuration from. As you can see on the screen, I have logged in to the iSeries FIPS appliance that is currently running TMOS 15.1.8. Let's quickly go over the configuration and look at the FIPS keys that we're going to attempt to migrate. So really quick, I have two FIPS keys, a server SSL FIPS key and a client SSL FIPS key. These keys are assigned to a client SSL profile and a server SSL profile, which in turn are assigned to a virtual server that's hosting an HTTPS application. As you can see here, both of the client and server SSL profiles are assigned to it. Now that we have a tenant running on the rSeries FIPS appliance with a FIPS partition assigned to it, the next step is to use the FIPS configuration backup and restore utility to migrate FIPS keys and configuration data from the FIPS card on the iSeries FIPS appliance to the FIPS card on the tenant running on our rSeries FIPS appliance. In order to download utilities required to migrate FIPS configuration data and FIPS keys to the rSeries FIPS appliances, navigate to my.f5.com. Once here, click on Downloads. Choose the F5 OS option. Select the F5 OS appliance software that runs on rSeries FIPS appliances. Select the 1.5.0, which is the latest version at the time of recording this video. Over here, you will see links to utilities that are required to migrate FIPS configuration data and FIPS keys to the rSeries FIPS appliances. Before we jump into the process to backup and restore FIPS configuration data and FIPS keys, let's review the prerequisites required to ensure that the FIPS configuration backup and restore process can complete. On the source appliance, in this case our iSeries appliance, ensure that you have command line access to the big IP system. Also ensure that you have root access to the big IP system. On the rSeries FIPS appliance, ensure that you have root access to both the host and the tenant. You'll also need command line access to the tenant. Ensure that you're running a version of FIPS firmware that is compatible with the FIPS configuration backup and restore utilities. Finally, ensure that the FIPS partition that is assigned to the tenant running on the rSeries appliance has a key size that is greater or is at least equal to the number of keys on the source big IP. Finally, on both the source and destination appliances, ensure that you have the FIPS HSM SO or security officer password, and you also know the HSM security domain. You'll also want to ensure that you've initialized the FIPS card in the rSeries tenant. So let's log into the rSeries tenant via SSH. Because it's the first time I'm logging into the tenant, I'm being prompted to change the password. Let's go ahead and do so. So I'm changing the password for the root user. Okay, as you can see, I'm logged into the rSeries tenant. The FIPS util info command can be issued to get details about the FIPS partition assigned to the rSeries tenant. As you can see, the FIPS card is uninitialized. Let's go ahead and initialize the FIPS card. Issue a security officer password. We'll choose to retain the default FIPS domain, and as you can see, the FIPS card is initialized. Let's also restart services. And now we're ready to start the FIPS configuration and key backup and restore process. It is important to note that during the FIPS card configuration backup and restore process, FIPS card configuration objects on the source Big IP's FIPS card, such as the SO password and the FIPS domain, are also backed up and restored to the FIPS partition assigned to the rSeries tenant in addition to the FIPS card themselves. In order to do the FIPS card configuration backup and restore, you'll need to issue a series of commands beginning with doing a FIPS card configuration backup on the iSeries Big IP, followed by a series of commands on the rSeries host and tenant. So let's jump right in. Let's now begin the FIPS configuration backup process on the iSeries FIPS appliance that you'd like to move the FIPS configuration and keys from. The first step is to copy the N3 FIPS util file that you downloaded from my.f5.com to the target Big IP and modify file permissions. For today's demo, I've already gone ahead and copied the N3 FIPS util to the shared images folder on our source Big IP. As you can see, I have the N3 FIPS utility with modified file permission. The next step is to stop all services on the source Big IP, which in this case is our iSeries FIPS appliance. Let's go ahead and do that. Once you've gone ahead and stopped all services on the iSeries FIPS appliance or your source Big IP, you'll want to create a directory to store the FIPS card configuration and encrypted objects. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's call it FIPS key. Okay. And at this point, we're ready to run the command to do a FIPS card configuration. So let's do that. -backup. As you can see, the partition name is optional and only applies when you're executing this command on a system that has VCMP guest and the FIPS card is partitioned. We don't have VCMP provisioned on our iSeries FIPS appliance, so it's not applicable in this case. Also, the host option is only applicable when you have VCMP guest, which is also not applicable. So let's go ahead and issue the backup command and point to the directory we just created. So that'll be the FIPS key and hit enter. We're prompted to enter the security officer password. Let's go ahead and do that. As you can see, the backup of our default partition is successful. The default partition is partition_1. Let's go ahead and restart system services to ensure that traffic processing can resume. Let's quickly examine the contents of the folder that we just created to backup FIPS configuration and keys on our source Big IP. So let's go back to shared images, FIPS_keys, and do an ls. Here, the okbk.key is the adapter owner backup key or the MCO fix key. The POKBK.key is the partition fixed backup key or PCO fixed key. As this backup data contains encrypted security password officer and other configuration objects for the FIPS card on the iSeries appliance, it is important to ensure that this folder is secured. Next step is to ensure that you're copying the directory to a secure and reliable location without changing the content on this directory. Now that we've successfully completed the FIPS configuration and key backup process on our iSeries FIPS appliance, we are ready to begin the FIPS configuration and key restore process on the rSeries host and tenant. The first step is to log in to the rSeries guest as the root user and copy the POKBK.key, which is the PCO fix key, from the iSeries backup folder to the rSeries tenant. You'll also want to download and copy the KVM key migration utility from my.f5.com into the rSeries tenant. We'll also finally want to stop system services on the rSeries tenant. As you'll see, I've already gone ahead and copied the utility and the POKBK key. I've also gone ahead and stopped system services. We're now ready to issue the command to begin the restore process. So let's go ahead and do that. So in this case, we have the path to the POKBK file is right here. So POKBK, and then the partition name, which is nothing but the partition that is assigned to this tenant, which is partition _2, and hit enter. You will be prompted for the security officer password. As you can see, the first step to do the FIPS configuration restore is successful. You'll want to store the PEKCV string, which is the POKBK key in hex, as you'll need to pass this string as an input to our next step on the rSeries host. The next step in the FIPS configuration restore process will need to be executed on the rSeries host, which you'll need to log into as the root user. You'll also want to download and copy the KVM key migration utility to the rSeries host. In this case, I'm going to be using the var temp directory. And for the purpose of this demo, I've already gone ahead and copied and extracted the key migration utility, and also copied over the folder that contains the FIPS card configuration and keys. We're now ready to execute the command to do a restore. The command is fipsutil _v2 _r -restore, point to the backup folder, the partition name, and you'll also want to store the PEKCV string that was outputted in the previous step. So in this case, I have that string handy. So this is the command that I'm going to execute on the rSeries host. You're going to be prompted for the security officer password. As you can see, the step 2 in the FIPS configuration restore process is successful. The last step in the FIPS configuration restore process is to be executed on the rSeries tenant. As you can see, I'm logged in as the root user, and I already have the key backup and restore utility on the rSeries tenant. So let's go ahead and run the command to do a login reset. The command is FIPS util underscore v2 underscore backup and restore hyphen login reset, and the hyphen n and the partition name assigned to this rSeries tenant. In our case, that is partition underscore 2. We enter the security officer password, re-enter the security officer password, and as you can see, the FIPS configuration restore process is complete. As you can see, the that the total number of keys available on the FIPS partition assigned to this rSeries tenant is 10, out of which you can see that only 8 are available to use. This indicates that the 2 FIPS keys from the rSeries FIPS appliance have been migrated from the FIPS card on the rSeries appliance to the FIPS card on the rSeries guest. It is important to note that while the FIPS keys have been migrated from the source BigIP's FIPS card to the rSeries tenant's FIPS card, the keys themselves are not available for data path processing, and you'll need to do a UCS backup and restore, which we'll do in the next step. To recap, in the first demo, we introduced the rSeries FIPS appliances and the F5 OSA platform layer software that runs on the rSeries appliances. We created FIPS partitions on the rSeries FIPS appliance. In today's demo, we were able to deploy BigIP tenants on the rSeries FIPS appliance and assign FIPS partitions to the tenants. We then were able to successfully do a FIPS card config backup and restore from a FIPS card on an rSeries FIPS appliance to a FIPS partition assigned to a tenant running on the rSeries. In the third video, we'll use journeys to migrate BigIP configuration from the rSeries FIPS appliance to the tenant running on rSeries FIPS. Thank you for watching.